you come up on there if you speak during the recording. Like I said, today we are going to be discussing the Assyrian Empire and the Chaldean Empire. Now, when we say the Assyrians, we'll also be covering the Neo-Assyrian period, and we say the Chaldeans, remember, some people also call them the Neo-Babylonians, but it'll be fine. It'll be good. So, the Assyrians. Boy, they were mean, they were nasty, they were cool. This image on the right here kind of shows an example of what they did. So, say you lost a battle. For funsies, they decided to poke out people's eyeballs. One of the things they might do is there might be, let's say, they divide you up into the groups of hundreds. And so 90 of those 100 have both of their eyeballs removed, and then 10 of those 100 would have one of their eyeballs removed so they can lead the other 100 or 90 people back to their homes. Other terrible things that they would do is they would say, oh, let's make you guys feel really bad as you have to march back. They remove your leaders' heads, and then they would turn them into necklaces and make you wear those head necklaces as you walk back. I know, gruesome, gross, terrible. They did it for funsies. They had a super strong military, and that's how they're able to do this, because they were able to bully and be cruel to people. And when I say bully and be cruel, they would. After conquering you, they might just burn down your town and your crops for funsies, so then you have problems like, I have no shelter, I have no food, uh-oh. After they conquered you, of course, they made you pay tribute. We remember that tribute is the money that Samuel makes Avery pay, so Samuel doesn't beat him up anymore. And the idea, though, was they were so mean, so cruel, so harsh, so brutal that they wanted people to surrender before the battle even began. To say, I don't want those terrible things to happen to me. We give up, okay? We'll bow down to you guys. That was the idea with it. And one of the things that made their army so powerful, made them be able to be so cruel without retribution, is the fact that they were the first empire to have iron weapons. Now, the technology at this time is most people were on bronze weaponry. Bronze was great. People loved bronze. But here's the problem. If I give Austin a bronze sword and I give Aaron a iron sword, when they go and have their swords strike each other because they are doing battle, guess what? That bronze sword is probably going to break. And so then, therefore, Aaron has a huge advantage. But because they were so jerky and mean, I know I'll get to you in 1 second, people would rebel after they were conquered. When the main military was gone, people would say, we're not listening to you guys anymore. We're rising up. All right. Mr. Estep, what is your question, sir?
My computer did a hard reset without me pressing anything. What did I miss?
Well, you can go back and look at the video or look at the PowerPoint. You'll see we're on the first slide, sir. All right. So
okay.
Okay. So, the Assyrians. Capital was Nineveh. Yes, if you've heard of Nineveh before from things like the story of Jonah, that is the same Nineveh. It was a very, very real place, and the people were cruel, mean, terrible because they were the Assyrians. And Jonah was like, I don't want to go there for very good reason. We do know that, however, despite their meanness, their harshness, they did probably have some good government ideas. They separated their empire into provinces. They had lots of roads connecting the empire to promote trade and also to make it easier for their military to be able to travel back and forth. Their laws, believe it or not, were harsher than the Babylonians. That's right. Instead of maybe a hand, it was probably just your life that they would be taking instead in most circumstances, which a lot of your laws were really more Assyrian style than Hammurabi with how mean you guys got to each other. Yishka peesh. But so here's the thing. They were cruel and they were harsh, but we get a lot of this from the sources from the people that hated them. So we have some other sides from them that don't get talked about very much, like the fact that they invented the idea of the library. That's right. The very first libraries of the world were built in Mesopotamia by the Assyrians. The same people that were cruel and harsh, they built the first libraries, the first repositories of knowledge. They built these beautiful bas-relief sculptures, which we see right here. When you guys get to go to the Walters Art Gallery, hopefully in the spring, or like I said, your parents can take you because it's free to go. It's in Baltimore, so it's not too far. You can see Assyrian art, and it's incredible. So these people weren't just ruthless murderers. They did a lot. They built aqueducts to go bring water over distant lands to take care of their people. So when we look at these things, we always have to study and wonder how much of this is true and how much of this is propaganda, meaning how much of this are things that people said after the Assyrians were gone to make the Assyrians look worse. We definitely have some evidence that the Assyrians did some mean, nasty, terrible things. I mean, goodness gracious, their religion basically said for that, so they worshipped a god named Ashurbanipal. They were polytheistic, but Ashurbanipal was their main god, and that the world would end if they ever stopped battling and lost a battle. That the literally Armageddon would happen if the Assyrian army stopped moving and conquering. That's a wild kind of idea. And we do know that, however, the Assyrians, they did lose. And the world still spins. Hooray. Unless, of course, this is an alternate reality construct of some dream of some Assyrian guy right now, and this is all not real. Not to get all metaphysical or anything on you. Anyways, Austin, your question, Rooney, sir.
Is it supposed to be a ruin of an aqueduct, or are they saying it's been ruined?
It's a ruin of an aqueduct, a ruined aqueduct.
Okay.
It's broken because it's old.
Very old.
Yep. So here we see the green is going to be the first incarnation of the Assyrian Empire. The Assyrians are going to conquer a lot of territory in their beginning, and people, like I said, are going to hate them. They're going to rebel. They're going to fight back, and then the Assyrian, they're going to shrink back down, and mostly around their capitals of Ashur and Nineveh. Depending on the time, sometimes Nineveh was the capital, sometimes Ashur was the capital. I know I just said Nineveh in there because that's the most famous of the cities, but both of those cities are going to be capital cities. But then what we're going to have a resurgence of the Assyrian Empire that we often refer to as the Neo-Assyrian. Remember, we've heard that word Neo before, Neolithic, so the new Assyrian Empire. And the new Assyrian Empire we're going to see is humongous, even conquering the Egyptians, conquering all of the Fertile Crescent, and even going into present-day Turkey. So we're going to see it's a pretty humongous empire. Now, we get to our final Mesopotamian empire for our unit, the Chaldeans, sometimes also referred to as the Neo-Babylonians. The Chaldeans are just one of the many groups that absolutely hated the Assyrians. They said they were the worst. So they battled the Assyrians. They got other people to battle the Assyrians. They said, hey, Madeline Kate, those Assyrians are jerkbags, right? And she's like, yeah, they are jerkbags. He goes, hey, Ashlyn, Aaron, Samuel, Aiden, you guys don't like the Assyrians. Like, no, we don't like the Assyrians. They burned our houses down. They poked out our eyeballs and stuff like that. So Rylan gets her big battle axe. Karachi gets her spear. Carson gets a tank somehow. I don't know how he got that through his time machine. And then they go and battle the Assyrians and take on over. So all of these city-states join together, overthrow the Assyrians, and then the Chaldeans become the rulers. Because the Chaldeans took the city of Babylon as their capital, that's why they're often referred to as the Neo-Babylonian Empire. I do want you to realize, though, the Neo-Babylonians and the Babylonians are not the same people, whereas it's confusing because the Assyrians and Neo-Assyrians are the same people. So to make it easier for you all, I'm just going to say Chaldeans. Yes, Mariah, darling, what is your question? Or you're showing that your hand is growing green like Madeline's was growing red, which is very scary. Since she's laughing, I'm assuming she had nothing to ask. Sad. I thought she needed me. Anyways, the most famous of these rulers is going to be a guy named Nebuchadnezzar, who some of you might have also heard of before. Nebuchadnezzar plays prominently in the Old Testament of the Bible, and winds up actually being a really good king for the Babylonians. He makes it very rich with lots of trade, and he has a wife who's from an area which was much more built up, much more fertile, from Africa. I can't remember the exact kingdom of Africa she was from, but she was used to trees and plants and beautifulness, and she was out in the middle of Mesopotamia, which is not full of trees, plants, and beautifulness unless you're right on the river. So he goes, honey, I'm going to give you the best present ever. For you, I'm making this one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. I am making you the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which is a humongous ziggurat with all of this plant life and golden statues and awesome stuff on it. It's really, from all of ancient sources, was remarkable. Yes, you would, Haley, although it'd be uncomfortable. They built other beautiful things like the Ishtar Gate, which still stands today. It's been painted since then because, it's really old and that blue paint wouldn't have lasted all that time. But so we have our Chaldean Empire. Here is a night. Oops, blah, 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 oops. I didn't do that. I can't believe Danielle did that. Unbelievable, Danielle. This is an example of the territory controlled by our Chaldean Empire. We see they don't rule Egypt like the Assyrians did, but roughly besides that, it's around the same size of the Neo-Assyrian Empire, except for the part of Egypt there. So we see it's big. They cover the whole entire Fertile Crescent with their rule. Here's a zoomed image of what we think the Hanging Gardens look like. We see beautiful, lush awesomeness. Unfortunately, it was all destroyed, so we don't have, we don't have it anymore. So we can't see that ancient wonder of the
How
world.
was it destroyed?
I don't remember, to be honest. I feel like it was a combination of earthquake and fire, but I'd have to look it up to be honest.
Oof.
Now, we know the Neo-Babylonians did tons of math. They wouldn't have been able to build this awesome stuff without math. They were really, really into astronomy, and they invented the sundial. That's right. So now you can tell what time of the day it is. Thank you, Chaldeans. And so that is going to be our notes for the day, my cherubs. I'm going to stop presenting, right, or stop recording.